All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Fusion Friday. My name is Brian Mulcamutsik.
My name is Alex Alvarez.
And I hope you guys are excited for this Easter weekend. I know I am.
Absolutely.
So this Easter weekend, I'll be hiding some eggs instead of finding the eggs, unfortunately. And for those of you guys who have like nieces and nephews or sons and daughters that you want to get into CAM early, consider hiding some drill bits or end mills in those Easter eggs as a surprise. So yeah, today we have something special for you guys. Speaking of end mills and drill bits, we'll be focusing on CAM in Fusion 360. And more in particularly, we'll be focusing on a little project that Alex and I did on the x-carve, which is a CNC router meant for wood, and it could cut thin sheets of aluminum as well. But it's of a drop plate that we created, which is a piece of wood that you can put your wallets, your keys, and your phone into as well. And Alex will be talking to you guys a little bit more about that. But before we get started, I want to remind you guys that we here at KETIV are here to make our partners more competitive and successful through essential guidance, technology, and support. And if you guys missed any of our past Fusion Fridays, you can find it on our YouTube channel if you type in KETIV Fusion Fridays. And lastly, be sure to keep up those questions and comments that you guys have for us. Last Fusion Friday was really awesome. You guys had a lot of great comments and questions. There's a lot of responses and interaction with you guys, which we really enjoyed.
And I feel like it just makes the webinar go a little bit more smoother, right? We do get the interaction from you guys, and we actually noticed that you guys are enjoying the webinar and paying attention.
Yeah, we're actually talking to someone else on the end there. So
yeah,
absolutely. That's good. Yeah, that's good news. So yeah, keep it up, guys. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to Alex now, and we'll talk more about the project we did.
Thank you for that, Ryan. All right, so I did see that we had a few people registered to our webinar, right? So just a quick overview on Fusion 360. It is a cloud-based CAD/CAM software that, in my eyes, I mean, it does take simplicity to a whole new level, right? So Autodesk wanted a product that took you all the way from the design stage of the product to the manufacturing stage without necessarily having to leave that tool. So if you take a look at that workflow, again, that can take a few tools. You would need some sort of a design tool, maybe some sort of a tool to create your toolpaths or manufacture the part, or you might even be doing the tooling for it as well, right? So it takes a couple tools to actually get you through that entire process. But with Fusion 360, you bring that down to one tool, giving your team, again, a much more integrated experience, right? So being that Fusion 360 is cloud-based, it is, in essence, connected to the cloud, right? What that means for you, again, is that you can really leverage today's modern technology and take full advantage of the computing power that comes by being connected to the cloud. Now, connected also means having your team connected as one as well. What we've been noticing too is that there's a lot of disconnection, and people, amongst their teams aren't really communicating well. With Fusion 360, again, you're essentially sharing that data or collaborating in one easy, seamless, easy to access environment. And then lastly, so Fusion 360 is both accessible on both the Windows and Mac platform. So if you do have a Mac, you don't have to run boot camp on the Mac. You can just run Fusion 360 straight out of the box there. All right, so some learning objectives for today. We are going to be covering the entire process that both Brian and I took to creating this little project, right? So that's going to go from actually modeling the part to actually creating model parameters. So once we had a successful run, I guess, for the part, we did have a couple of our coworkers come up to us and ask us for their own personalized drop plate, right? So with that, the only thing we asked from them was to just get us the material, and we'll create it for you guys. Again, not everyone's going to have the same size materials, so what better way than to actually create some parameters inside of Fusion 360, and then that way our changes can go pretty smoothly there when we do make changes, right? And once we actually model the part, it does have some sort of intricate shapes, so we are going to have to find some workarounds for creating our toolpath, right? So we'll kind of talk about some of the workarounds that I took. And then lastly, again, there wasn't a set post processor inside of Fusion 360 or the post library for Brian's x-carve machine. But again, there is one inside of the Autodesk HSM post farm, so we will be showing you guys how to access that post and bring it into your personal post library. And then lastly, we'll post out the code there and just see how it looks. All right, so these are just a few images that I took, right? So this is the finished product. Again, I've stained it, right? So we'll probably show you guys how it came out at the very end here of the webinar. So if you are interested to see how it turned out once we actually added some wood stain, stay till the end. So yeah, this is the finished product. And then of course there's Brian, always being safe, right, with the safety glasses and his hand always on the emergency stop.
You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into Fusion and take a look at that workflow. So again, starting off, we are going to be in the modeling environment of Fusion 360, right? So typically, the golden rule when it comes to Fusion 360, it is a top-down assembly modeling tool or software. Essentially, what that means is that you can create all the files or all the components that you're going to need for an assembly inside of this single file, right? So a lot of people are still somewhat confused when it comes to that topic. If you do want to see a little bit more info, or maybe you would like to maybe see a webinar on how to approach that, or some of the best techniques, feel free to leave that in the comment section there, or wait till the end and let us know that you want to see that, right? So again, typically the golden rule when it comes to modeling is you want to save the file over here on the top. I give it some sort of a name, and that's going to create the parent file for Fusion 360, right? So once you actually hit save, you want to right click on the very parent file over here on the top and create some sort of a new component, right? So for us, it is just going to be a single file, right? I'm not going to be working with multiple files or multiple components. So in this case, I'm not going to do that. But keep in mind, if you do want to create assemblies, or you do know that you're going to be working with multiple parts, go ahead and follow that golden rule for Fusion 360, right? So starting off, like I mentioned, we are going to start with creating some sort of a parameters here, right? So over here in the toolbar, under modify, we see that we have the change parameters. Now, some of you might not see this, right? So if you expand the modify dropdown, work your way down, you'll see that you have the change parameters there, right? So mine is on the very top because, again, if you notice here on the very right of the command there, you do have an arrow pointing upwards, right? So that's going to indicate that you are going to bring that certain command up to your toolbar. So if you do want to add a few commands to the toolbar that you commonly use, go ahead and add that command to the toolbar. It just makes things a little bit easier. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and add some parameters. Right? So we get this parameters dialog box. And we want to create some sort of a user parameter here, right? So again, just click there, give it some sort of a name. Start off with length. Our initial part was 7.5 inches. Right? And the height was 5.5. And then finally, the thickness, right? So I'll just keep thick for short, and it was 3/4 of an inch. Again, if you want to keep track or be a little bit more elaborate with your parameters, you can enter a comment, and it will give you a quick description of exactly what parameter you are going to be creating, right? So really, that's it when it comes to parameters, right? Now let's go ahead again and create our initial start point, which is going to be a center rectangle in this case. So you are going to want, it's going to ask for some sort of a plane, right? We want to start on the top plane here, base it off the origin, right? So before actually clicking anywhere, you want to make sure that you leave it as is, right? So I can still move it around. So you will notice too that the top dimension or the length is getting highlighted, right? So let's just begin typing out. Right, so we see that our user parameter appears right there on the bottom. So just to put that into the box there, just hit enter. Hit enter again. Right, so it transitions you over to the height, right? So again, type it out. Just hit enter once, hit enter again. Right, and we see that we get these dimensions here, right? So it's got this little fx, right, for the function. It's referencing the dimension that we use for our user parameter, right? So that's how you'll know that you're actually referencing the user parameter that you created. All right, so now I want to go ahead and extrude this feature. Again, I can go under create, or I can use this little extrude. Notice if I hover over extrude, right, it says extrude and then it has a little E next to it, right? So that's going to be the hotkey for extruding. So if I just hit E on my keyboard, you have this little extrude dialog box. Again, let's go ahead and extrude that and begin typing out the thickness, right? So here we have now our 3D feature. All right, so now what I want to do then is create the grooves that we're going along the face of the part here, right? So let's go ahead and create that. So for that, I'll probably need some sort of a plane, right? So my thought process behind this is probably creating a line, creating a circle, and then doing a sweep across the top there. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, to create any sort of reference geometry, whether it's an axis or a plane, that's going to be under the construct drop down, right? So a couple options here, right? So plane along path, that's a pretty good one. Plane tangent to a face, right? We have no round edges there, so we probably can't use that one. Plane through 3 points, 2 edges, right? So awesome, some pretty good options here. The one that I want to go with though is the plane at an angle, right? So if you read the little description there on the side, it's saying that you want to select a linear edge, axis, or sketch, and then position the plane and specify a rotation angle, right? Which is what I want to do. So let's go ahead and select that one. Now it's asking us for that edge. In my case, I want to start off in this edge for a few reasons. One, it's a little bit easier to create, right? I don't have to come in here and create some sort of other reference geometry. And two, it's going to be the longest cut that we have along the face. Right, so what that means is that when I pattern it or I do some sort of a mirror to the feature here, I'm going to know that I'm going to get a full cut along this entire face, right? So let's go ahead and reposition this, give it an angle. I'd probably say -45. That's good there. So now let's go ahead and create then the reference geometry for our sweep cut there, right? So let's go ahead and hit alpha line. Right, take advantage of the hotkeys here, guys. Right, so that's how you can really increase the efficiency of your work. All right, so again, it's asking us for a plane. I want to go ahead and select this plane. All right, so I noticed too that there's a question here that's asking, well, when you select a plane, it didn't automatically project that sketch onto the face, right? So that's true. Reason for that is I took that off for a couple reasons. I mean, the first reason, sometimes it can get a little cluttered. I don't always want to use those edges, right? So I don't always need the projection necessarily there. Not only that, when you do have complicated surfaces and you maybe select on a weird surface, you are going to get a whole bunch of lines and construction geometry that you don't necessarily need, right? So if you are one of those people that don't necessarily want that or need that, again, if you go under your drop down, right, so we're going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. Go to preferences. I believe it's under design. Yeah, so I have auto project geometry on active sketch plane turned off, right? So if you don't want to have the auto project on, just go ahead and uncheck that, hit apply, and that should take care of the projection there, right? But in this case, I did need it, so I just hit P on my keyboard for project, and then projected that face, right? So the reason why I needed it was I need to connect these two endpoints to create that direction. Alpha line once again. Reason why I want to create this other line is to give it a direction for when I pattern my feature, right? Let's go ahead and stop sketch. Now I want to create the circle, right? Give it the profile for the sweep to follow. So C for circle. Now it's asking which plane I want to select. I want to select this plane. Right. Once again, I want to project this point onto the plane that I was just at, right? So notice if I, once again, hit C for circle, I can't pick that point, right? So you need to project that specific point onto the plane that you're at. So P for project, select that point. Now C for circle, right? Notice that now I'm able to select that point, right? So let's go ahead and make our circle. D for dimension, and let's just say 1/4 of an inch is fine. So now I can go ahead and stop the sketch, Again, I do know where the sweep command is at, right? So if you create sweep, but here, if you've been tuning into our webinars, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the sketch toolbox, right? So again, if you guys aren't familiar with the sketch toolbox, just hit S on your keyboard, right? And we're gonna get the model toolbox, again, because we're gonna be doing some sort of modeling feature here, right? But hit S on your keyboard. It's asking you what you're looking for. We want a sweep command, right? So type out sweep and it automatically pops up in there. Just hit enter, right? And now it's asking us then for a profile. So we want to sweep the circular profile. The path that we want to take is this line that we created. So a few of you might ask, why didn't create these as reference geometry? So reason for that is sometimes it doesn't necessarily pick up the construction geometry for the path. So that's why I just decided to leave it as a solid line, right? So if you are getting an issue with the sweep command and you're selecting some sort of reference geometry, go ahead and change that to a solid line and see if that fixes the issue there, right? So for this, I'm happy with that. Go ahead and click OK. Maybe I want to do a little edge break there, right? So F on my keyboard for fillet and select these two edges, add a 50 thou fillet. So there's our first groove, right? Now let's go ahead and create a pattern of this feature. So again, S on my keyboard, type in pattern. Right? We get all the different commands that begin with pattern, right? Or that have at least PATT in there. So in this case, I'm going to use a rectangular pattern. Right? Pattern type. What do I want to pattern? I want to pattern features, and I want to pattern the sweep feature and then the fillet that I just created. Now, which direction? I want to use the direction of the line that I created. Now, I don't see it there, right? So let's go ahead and hit the little drop down for my sketch, and we'll see that it's hidden, right? So just turn it on and off by clicking on that light bulb there. Right? So now, direction is going to be this, right? So you'll notice then that it just wants to go in one direction, right? If I try going the other way, again, it's not going to create any more on this other side, right? So for that, let's go ahead and change direction type to symmetric. I want 9 of these features, and I want them to extend the distance of 4 inches, right? All right, so that looks pretty good. Again, you have a little preview. Let's say for whatever reason you didn't want the outside ones, you can just go ahead and turn them off, right, by suppressing this little checkbox here. So in my case, I do want the outside one, so let's go ahead and hit OK. Turn off the sketch. And lastly, let's go ahead and add maybe a fillet here on the outside. Right? Okay, let's say I want to maybe half-inch fillet. All right, so this is where it's going to start getting a little interesting, right? So I want to go ahead and save at this point. So for a few reasons, it's going to make my life a lot easier when I go ahead and program the part. And I also want to save it just because it's best practice to often save your part there, right? So let's go ahead and hit save, and I'll just put 1. Again, if I didn't want to save it under this project, I can always change the project, right? So whichever project you do have open, it's going to default to saving it to that specific project, right? In my case, I do want to save it there, so let's just go ahead and hit save. Okay, so we saved it. Let's go ahead and continue on then with the part. So let's go ahead and just finish it off by adding that little extrusion there. So once again, S on your keyboard. What do we want? We want a rectangle. And it's going to be a center rectangle. And we want to start from this top face here, right? Go ahead and create your rectangle. D for dimension. So it's there. And same thing for this edge here. So E for extrude, select the profile, right? And we're going to go down again. I'll probably say ½ inch. And then lastly, just finish off with probably some fillets here, right? So fillets. fillets. Right, so now for me, whether it's wood or whether I'm working with a metal part, let's say I was going to be using this a 1/4-inch tool to machine out this pocket here, right? My fillets aren't necessarily going to be exactly 1/4 of an inch. Again, so I just like to leave some sort of a tolerance on fillets. You don't need, I mean, if it calls out for a 1/4-inch fillet, then go ahead and do a 1/4-inch fillet. But if you're the one designing the part, typically just try to go a little bit higher than the fillet that you're going to be, or the radius of the tool that you're going to be using, right? So in this case, I'll probably go 256. Right, so that's going to be okay. 6 thousandths over. All right, so now we'll probably want to add, we'll just probably add a quick design here, right? So a couple options. Let's go ahead and look for maybe a picture here, right? So let's say you wanted maybe some sort of gears on that, right? So let's look at some images. Okay, so this one looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and select this one. You can save the image. Right, desktop is going to be okay. Go back into Fusion. Right, so there's a couple options here that you can do. We can insert, attach canvas. Right, so let's go ahead and do that. Now it's asking for a face. So where do you want to place that canvas? Well, we want to place it on this face. Select the image. Or desktop. Right, so from here we have a couple options, right? We have this little triad here, these icons that we can essentially just control the scale of the image, and if we wanted to rotate them like 90 degrees or a certain amount of degrees, you can do that. So once you're happy with that, go ahead and click OK. You can change the transparency, or if you want to display through the model, right, you can do that as well. But for us, that's okay, right? So now the only issue is though that we can't select this to extrude, right? So what do we have to do? We have to maybe create some sort of an outline, right? So C for circle and try to maybe guess and get close to it. But there's a better option, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So under canvas, let's go ahead and delete this. We don't need it anymore. We can even hide it. I don't need to stop the steps there. There we go. All right, so let's go back into our web browser. And this time, let's go ahead and do SVG Conversion. All right, so now we have this online SVG Converter. So if you didn't know what SVG stands for, it's a scalable vector graphics, right? So essentially, it's going to create or get an outline of that image, and it's going to create lines that we can extrude from, right? So if we go back to our image, select the 3 gears. Right, so we have the file chosen. Scroll down a little bit, convert the file. Here we go. So we'll see that it's downloaded already, right here on our bottom browser. So now let's go back into Fusion. Now what we want to do is go back under Insert and check out this option, guys. Insert SVG. Right, so insert SVG. It's asking us for the face again, so let's go ahead and select that same face. And now it's asking us for the file. Right, so if we go to our downloads, 3 gears once again. So I can bring them close to the center there, and then just scale it down somewhere over there. Right, so for the perfectionists out there, you can create some sort of reference geometry and then move your SVG to that specific point if that's what you wanted. But for us, we just want to get it somewhere close, relatively close, right? So now check this out, right? So we have closed profiles now. So what I can do is E for extrude, select a few of these profiles, and let's say just 20 thousandths, right? Now we can actually select that profile and create features from that specific sketch, right? So depending on what you're looking for, again, sometimes the SVG converter doesn't do that great of a job. So in that case, you probably might have to use an attached canvas and then try to create that geometry yourself, right?
Yeah, the SVG converter works well if it's like a black and white.
Yeah.
Very contrasting colors.
Absolutely.
But if it's like gray on black or something that might be close, it might not come out as good. But this one worked out.
Yeah, there was some good contrast in the picture, so that's why I picked up the edges pretty nicely there. All right, so we're pretty much done with this part. Again, we can go ahead and save it, and I'll just give it a quick description, right? So a lot of people are still getting confused because they type in 2, right? But then their file is still showing 1 here, right? So again, if that's something that you want to see, feel free to let us know, and we'll discuss that either offline or just set up a call with you guys. But yeah, when you hit save, think of a snapshot in time, right? That's how I like to look at it. So we created our original file named 1, and then we saved it once again. So we took a snapshot of this file, right? So you can even see a little snapshot here of how it looks like with the rest of the finished features here, right? So you're not necessarily creating a new file, but you're creating a new version of it, right? A new snapshot of it. And again, you have a little description here on the bottom indicating what it is, right? So let's go ahead and do that. What I want to do too, though, is open up our first version of the file, right? So that's what's neat about versions too, is that you can always go back in time and you're not just limited to either going back in the design history or the timeline here. You can always open the other features or the other snapshots of the model that you had. Okay, so now that we have this open, let me go ahead and save it as a different file, right? So this is all going to make sense in a little bit here, but I want to go ahead and hit save, give it a name, grooves, I'm going to name it. Okay.
So it essentially gives you a template to create future drop plates.
Yeah. So now let's go ahead, insert this one into current design, the one that we just saved. Right, what's nice about this is that it automatically knows where our origin was or where we created our origin. So it's gonna create it right on top of that model that we were working on, right? So happy there. And now you see that that second component got created there, right? So we do have this little chain link indicating that it is referencing our model here. So you can't necessarily make changes in this file. So you are gonna have to, if you do wanna make changes, either break the link or go back to your original model inside your data panel and make the changes there, right? So in this case, I'm not really gonna make too many changes, so I'm okay with this. I can go ahead and hide the visibility though. So now I'm just ready to create some toolpaths for this part. So let's go into the CAM environment. And let's go ahead and again, start with our setup, right? So it's a pretty intuitive workflow, starting from left to right. If you were new to this interface, again, just hover over some of these commands and kind of walks you through exactly what the tool wants, right? So in this case, we're going to start off by defining our work coordinate system and the stock geometry, right? So that's how we want to start. Let's go ahead and select that. So right off the bat, my work coordinate system looks correct, so I don't need to really focus too much time on the setup. Now what I want to do is focus on the stock. What I can do, again, by default, it's going to default to a relative size box, right? So it's going to look at your model, and based on the value that you have here, it's going to give you some sort of dimensions for that stock. Again, we modeled our piece here to the dimension of wood that we're going to be using, so we can hit the drop down, no additional stock. Right, so it gives us the dimensions of the stock at 7.5 by 5.5 by 3/4 inch piece of wood. So that this looks good. Go ahead and select OK. All right, so first things first, we'll probably just round off the edges. For that, again, probably use a 2D contour. Problem with 2D contour is that it probably picks up the entire closed loop, and we are going to have clamps here, right? So we don't want to machine through the clamps, or we don't want to crash our machine. So pocket would probably be a good option. Contour, you can actually use it as well, using a, let's say in our case, a 1/4 inch flat. right? So notice that it does try to select the entire chain there, right? So if I just hold Alt on my keyboard and I just hover over some of these lines, notice that now it's picking the individual lines, right? So go ahead and just select the single line there, right? And do the same for the other corners there. All right, happy with that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and focus on the grooves, right? So for that, we're going to use a 3D toolpath. So under 3D, we want to use the pencil toolpath, right? So if you read the description, it's going to create a toolpath along internal corners and fillets with small radii. So that's a pretty good toolpath. It's going to pick up the fillets here or the grooves that we have, and it's going to just machine them out, right? So let's go ahead and select our tool. It's going to be a 1/4 inch ball, select. And for the 3D toolpath, again, I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. Let's see what kind of toolpath we get. All right, so not that great, right? It's going into the pocket here. We don't want it to machine the pocket yet. It's got a lot of retracts. Yeah, so it's overall it's not a good toolpath. Can we make it better? We can. We can probably define some of these edges, maybe patch up this this pocket here just so that it doesn't pick up and doesn't blend inside. Or, you know, being that we got a little creative with our modeling, we can actually go about this a lot quicker, right? So let's go ahead and delete this toolpath for now. Now let's go ahead and hit the little drop down for our components that we have, right? Let's go ahead and turn on the visibility of our grooves component. All right, so now if I do 3D toolpath, select pencil, right? We're still using the 1/4 inch ball. There we are. Geometry, right? So now we're under the geometry tab. Again, not that many changes here. What I do want you guys to focus on though is this model tab, right? So essentially that's the model override. So whatever body you didn't select inside of your setup, right? Once you create either a surface or maybe you want to use another model to reference, you want to make sure that you have this little checkbox enabled along with which surface you want to override, right? So in this case, we want to override the entire model. So let's go ahead and hit the drop down. If we try to hit the component, right, it's not going to select it. Oops, we just opened it up. Go to cam. Right, it's not going to pick it up. So go ahead and hit the drop down for the component once again. Drop down for the bodies. And select the entire body there, right? Again, if you ran it as is right now, it's going to do the same thing because why? It's looking at the setup model, right? It's going to include the setup model. So let's go ahead and uncheck that. And everything else should be good for the pencil toolpath. Yeah, so much better toolpath here, right? So it's going to go in here, go around, it's going to retract, go over here, retract, come around. So it does kind of do some weird movements here. I don't necessarily know exactly why it's picking up and doing that. That's just the order that is selected, right? But we probably can go in there and change a few things. But other than that, I mean, that's a much better toolpath, right? Now what I can do is hide the visibility here, right? And we still have the toolpath that we want. Right? You're not going to get any errors, or you're not going to get any warnings telling you that, hey, the model that you use is no longer there. Right? So that's a much better toolpath. So now let's go ahead and rough up the pocket there, again using a 2D adaptive clearing. Just use a 1/4 inch flat for this. And select. Again, if we select this pocket, notice what it's going to pick up. It's going to pick up the gears here, right? So let's go ahead and select the chain so that it automatically picks up the entire pocket there. So again, it's a roughing operation. So let's go ahead and make sure that we leave, probably say 20 thousandths on both the wall and the floor of the part. For that, let's go ahead and hit OK. All right. Again, we can probably change the retracts under the linking tab. So now let's go ahead and finish off the inside pockets there with a 2D pocket. Okay. Geometry, it's going to be this. And make sure that we have stock to leave off. And let's click OK, right? So it is going to probably start a little bit higher. Yeah, so it's going to start a little bit higher. That's an easy fix, though. Let's go ahead and change that. So it's picking up that there's still material on the top. We can change the top height then to be a selection. Right? Let's say we want to select the face there, and maybe we want to stay 100 thousandths above it. Right, so now we have a much shorter linking movement there. Right, and so lastly, I would probably go ahead and do some sort of a contour toolpath, maybe to just get the contour for these gears. So once again, 2D contour, selecting a I'll probably use a 1/4 inch chamfer mill. Right, so select this edge. This edge. So I did model it to be 20 thousandths deep, right? So it's automatically going to go down to that depth that I had modeled, right? So if I didn't, I would probably have to select the top of the face there, and then maybe control the heights under the heights tab there, right? So again, we do have some sort of a lead-in. Being that it's wood, we don't necessarily need to control that, right? So let's go ahead and take off the lead-ins. And we have a better toolpath there. Right, so for that, that's probably gonna be it when it comes to this part. Now what I want to do then is go ahead and post out to our machine. So if I go here under post process, right, we try to look for the x-carve machine. It might not even be there, right? So XML cutter, but we don't see any x-carve tool post, right? So let's go back into our web browser. There is a post, so shout out to Matt Nichols there, who did create a post for the Ezel. Again, if you just type in x-carve machine Fusion 360, you will see that we have a post there created, right? So all you really have to do then is just click on the post, it downloads it, right? So let's go back into Fusion. Under setup, this is where you're going to select exactly where or which location you want to select the post from. In our case, we want to select it from the personal post library, right? But again, it's not going to be under the personal post library, right? We still haven't saved it under that location. So how do we do that? Again, if we click on this, right, we're not going to have necessarily the option to paste it, right? So it's going to be a little difficult. So let me go back into my folders here, show in folder. So I want to go ahead and copy it, go back into Fusion, and under setup, once again, make sure that you have your personal post selected. Go ahead and open folder. Right, so now what I can do is right click, paste. Fusion 360 Ezel revise is going to be there. You can exit out of there. Again, under setup, let's go ahead and refresh it just for good measure. Right, and we see that the Ezel is going to be there, right? Now again, we have a couple of user properties here, not as many as your other posts, right? But it's a more simple machine, so you don't necessarily need that many changes, right? So again, we just go ahead and post it out to our desktop, and we get our code here, right? So the way Brian was doing it, I believe you're going into a different website, right? And then just opening it there.
So it's Ezel that we use. So after Alex gets the G code here, you would give it to me to post that imported the G code into Ezel, and then from Ezel it can run the x-carve machine.
Perfect. Yeah. So you guys will also notice it doesn't have a spindle speed, right? So the spindle speed, you control it
manually.
Yeah, manually through the machine. So that's why you wouldn't see that here. So that's why you also see that I didn't really worry too much about the speed.
Yeah, the DeWalt 611 that we use had 15,000 RPM to 27,000 RPM setting on it. So we ran the quarter-inch end mill at around 20,000, and the smaller end mill at about, I think, full.
Yeah, the ball end mill, we ran it at, saying it was like 26,000 RPMs and around 50 inches per minute, right? So we did have a pretty good working part. All right, so that's going to conclude the I guess the webinar for today, right? So just to reiterate what I covered, how to work or navigate the model workspace inside of Fusion 360, right? So it was a pretty basic part, but again, I feel like it did include a lot of the things, right? Especially the parameters that you guys might find useful. And then finally, how to find some workarounds, right, for the toolpaths. It's something that we could have maybe overcame by doing some sort of a patch for the surface. But in my case, I found this to be a lot easier, especially being that I was the one who was modeling this part, right? So if you are the one that's going to be modeling and actually machining the part, try to think ahead a little bit and see if any of the features that you're modeling are going to give you any issues. And if they are, try to find solutions or workarounds while you're actually modeling part. And then lastly, how to import your personal posts and save posts to your library there. Right, so if you guys do have any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask.
And in the meantime, we'll go ahead and show you guys the finished product after Alex has stained it.
Yeah, so
let's see if we can get you guys a good image.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a good point here, but I did get a little carried away with the wood stain. So that's why it came out a little too dark, but nonetheless, it was a pretty good experience and pretty good part overall, right?
So I think that's all the questions that I can see here in the GoToMeeting chat room. So thank you guys for attending.
Yeah, thank you.